Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first colloquium of our 2020-2021 series here at the Ames Center for Math and Science Education. My name is Paul Reimer. I'm the executive director here, and I just want to give everybody a very warm welcome on behalf of Ames, and thank you for being here with us today. We're excited to kick off this colloquium series, and are excited to have you all joining us here today. I know that schedules are busy and you are probably in the middle of either coming or going or in between different activities, and I'm sure you've spent a lot of time on the computer, on Zoom, or whatever video platform you may be using. And so we are grateful that you are here and glad to have you on board with us. I'd like to just take a moment to also just welcome and introduce our at Ames, our Associate Director of Higher Education, Steve Pauls. Steve, are you with us?
Yes, I am, Paul.
Hello, Steve, and welcome. And invite you to give a word of welcome as well.
Well, thank you, everyone, for attending. I see from our list we have 30 participants. That's fantastic. I hope everyone is doing well. This is I recognize your names. Many of you I've met before. Those that are new, I haven't met many of you in person, and I hope that one day I will get to meet you face to face and talk. But we just wanted to welcome you and let you know that where we at the Ames Foundation or Ames Center love to work with you, and we're passionate about education and all different areas. And we hope that this is the beginning of many conversations, that we're here to be your support and your help and a sounding board. And this is a very strange time in education, one that we've never seen before. And I know that you're working hard online and figuring things out. And we'd like to help with that, not only when online, but as we transition back to the classroom, and whether it's math or science or STEM, any combination of those. We would like to not be here just for a year or 2 years, but have a long-term conversation with you, and we're interested in your ideas, and we hope that we can bring some things to the colloquium and other workshops and meetings that you can find useful. So welcome again, and I hope that before too long we can all be in the same room and we can meet in person.
Thank you, Steve. And you'll have a chance to meet some more of the Ames team throughout the session this evening. But I also want to just give a chance to hear a little bit from you as well. So one of the protocols for our meeting time together will be if you are comfortable with your video on, that is our preference. We love to see interaction, and we know that seeing faces is helpful for everybody. So if for some reason you prefer not to or are not able to, that is okay as well. But if you would please keep your microphone on mute until you have a chance to share out, which you will have a chance to do later on in the session. That would be helpful as well to keep any background noise down to a minimum. We invite you to use the chat feature to ask questions or share your thoughts. And to go ahead and get started with that today, I'd like you to post something in the chat, if you would. I'd like to have everyone post your name, where you teach, and then what year are you in the program that you're in. If you're just getting started, that's great. If you've been working on this program for a bit of time, maybe this is your second year, partway through second year, maybe this is your final year. If you would, please just go ahead and post that in the chat. Would love to have a hello from you, and also just an opportunity for all of us to kind of see who else is here. And that would be fantastic. So if you would, just post your name and where you're at, where you're teaching, and then also your year in the program. And I see a lot of you are doing that already. Hello, it's great. Great to see you. Hello, Amanda, Mr. McKinsey. Fantastic. Great. So continue to do that. And I'm going to just sort of do a little bit more introduction at this point. I'd like to share just a bit more as we kind of get acquainted about AIMS and about what it is that we do and what we're passionate about. And so Steve was able to share a bit about that. I want to give a little bit more information about what it is that we do. Here at the AIMS Center, we support playful, human-centered, and culturally sustaining approaches to teaching and learning math and science. Our vision is for an equitable world through math and science education. And AIMS has been around for quite some time. This is not a new project that we're just launching. We've been around for quite some time. And throughout the years, our work has really focused around these 6 core values. We value inclusivity, empowerment, collaboration, human-centeredness, innovation, and diversity. We're committed to these values in the context of math and science education. So whether that's with teachers, in classroom settings, or those who support learners in informal spaces, or in community centers, or in childcare centers, we're excited about seeing these core values come to life in the work that we have and the work that we share together. AIMS started in the 80s with an NSF grant to support educators in developing resources for other educators. Resources and activities and materials that all had the common theme of being hands-on. So for AIMS, hands-on learning was one of the core fundamental principles of what we believed about science learning and about math learning. We commonly and sort of jokingly say that AIMS was STEM before there was such a thing as STEM. We were looking for ways of integrating math and science. And so here's a little nugget, a little truth that maybe not everybody knows about, but if you do know it, post it in the chat. Is there anybody here who knows what AIMS stands for? And all AIMS staff and associated people are excluded. But if you know what AIMS stands for, can you put it in the chat? I'm just curious if anybody knows. I'll wait a moment or two before I reveal the answer. I don't see any posts yet. I'm sure you could probably think of something like, let's see, something about math and science. Leslie, you are on the right track. Accelerated instruction. Yes, very interesting. That is very, very close. Math and science. Oh, alligators in my soup. That is from Scott Nielsen, who is part of AIMS. At least he was. Just kidding. Activities integrating math and science. That is correct. Emily's on the right track. Robert, congratulations. Yes, activities integrating math and science. And that's how it all started. And so you see blocks, you see a lot of different kinds of materials and hands-on things that are important to what it is that we do. But really, a large part of what we do now is focused around professional learning. We work with educators in many different arenas and across different grade levels to really deepen content knowledge, to engage in designing rich activities and learning experiences for kids, to build on children's thinking and to really notice children's thinking and to build on that. And that's been a large part of what we do. But we also are really interested in play and in playful approaches to math and science. So we've developed a series of what we're calling not workshops, but we're calling them play shops because we think they should be fun and educators should participate in them in ways that feel playful. So we're interested in incorporating play into what it is that we do. And when we're all back together again, you'll see us offering a variety of play shops, and that is where we engage together in playful math and science and think about ways that we can engage our students in that playful math and science. Because when we do that, we never hear the question, when am I ever going to use this? Because when people are at play and engaging in that, there isn't that question. It becomes much more natural. So that's something we're really excited about. In addition, as you know, as you're joining us now, we have a colloquium series. We offer typically 3 sessions a semester, and we're excited about this series to engage us all in thinking about ways that we can engage in effective teaching and ways that we can engage our learners in effective learning. So we're really excited about that. One of the other things that we are super excited about are 6 of our teacher scholars. We're thrilled to have a group of 6 teacher scholars joining the Ames team this year. And these 6 are completing single subject credentials in mathematics or science. So I just want to, and I see some of them are here with us, joining us today. So welcome, a special welcome to all of you. Excited about your work, your connection to Ames. We're excited about the ways that you are passionate about entering the field of mathematics and science teaching. And we're glad to have you and glad to be a part of your educational journey and career journey as we can. So a special warm welcome to our 6 teacher scholars for the year. So I want to shift now to thinking about what's important here and now. Here and now in education, I think we've all been sort of reeling from some of the changes, some of the crises that have been going on. We have dual pandemics of COVID-19 and systemic racial violence that have really caused unrest. We had recently evacuation and displacement during California wildfires. And at the same time, we have a lot of challenges and opportunities that have been brought about by the transition to online teaching. And so one of the things that we want to do together is to provide a space this semester for us to think together about how do we respond and how do we sort of stay above water and stay afloat in this current situation. But we want to focus some of these conversations too on how do we take this as an opportunity to design for creativity and to design for play in STEAM education. And we talk a lot about STEAM because we think the arts are a very, very important part of what it is to do mathematics and science as well. So enough chat about that, but we want to think about how do we design for creativity and for play, and rather than talking about it, we want to actually engage in it. So at this point, I want to turn over the reins to my colleague Aileen Rizzo, who is the Associate Director of PK-12 Education at the Ames Center, and also to Scott Nielsen, who is one of our PK-12 coordinators. So Aileen and Scott, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. It's great to see everyone. And as Paul said, we're all about play and hands-on learning and hands-on activities. So let's do some of that. Let's play a little bit together. You got some messages prior to this meeting about some supplies you might need. So, and I hope you can see my other camera over here. These are the things you'll need. some scissors, a couple of pieces of paper. The size of paper isn't terribly important. I just have some kind of 8.5 by 11 printer paper here. A marker of some kind, a pencil is just fine, and a little bit of tape. I have masking tape. If you have Scotch tape, that works fine too. I like using this blue tape doing demonstrations online because then you can actually see the tape and it's not invisible. So how about just a quick thumbs up, either a real thumbs up or a reaction zoom thumbs up if you've got those things and are ready to do a little playing together. All right, lots of thumbs, awesome. So we're going to do something called Mobius strips or Mobius loops, and you may have some experience with these in the past. I would encourage you, even if you've already done Mobius loops before, do them again. Every single time I play with Mobius loops, something surprising happens. So let's kind of jump in here. Take one of your pieces of paper and let's cut a strip. And we're going to cut long ways along the long edge of the paper. So like if you have an 8.5 by 11, we're going to make an 11-inch long strip. And let's make that, say about an inch wide. So if you cut a strip off that paper, about an inch wide. And while we're at it, why don't you just do 2 or 3? We're going to make several different loops in this process. While we're cutting, I'll maybe a little quick history that Mobius loops are named after a German mathematician named Ferdinand Mobius, not surprising. But even though he was several hundred years ago, there are ancient Roman mosaics that show that they had already discovered some of the properties of the Mobius loop. So these are certainly nothing new. People have been playing around with these for a long, long time. So if you've got one of your loops, let's kind of set these other ones aside here. And let's make not a Mobius loop. Let's just make a regular loop of paper. So we're just going to take the ends of our strip of paper here and bring them together. And then take a piece of tape, and I've got some kind of pre-made ones over here. Take a piece of tape and just tape the ends in a regular loop. And one thing you'll want to make sure is that that tape goes all the way across the paper, right, like that. Because we're going to do some cutting in just a moment. That's why we have the scissors. So everybody got a loop? You're going to hold your loop up to the camera if you've got one. Yay, lots of loops. All right, now before we cut, take your marker, your pencil, pen, whatever you've got, and we're going to draw a line around the loop. And we'll do that on the outside. And I'm just going to use my tape point as a starting point, my tape line here. I'm just going to start drawing a line around the outside of this loop, right down the middle. And I think you can see what I'm doing there. Now I'm going to kind of pull this off camera. One thing we like to always do is let's make a prediction. This is going to be probably a pretty obvious or easy prediction, but what do you think is going to happen with this line? Where will it end up? If you maybe just throw in the chat, type a little comment in there. What's going to happen with that line? Yeah, so somebody typed back at the start. Yeah, and of course, not surprisingly, that came right back to the starting point. If we did that on the inside, probably the same thing would happen, right? Okay, so now let's take our scissors And let's cut down that line. Good way to do that is just poke the scissors through somewhere in the loop. Don't cut in from the edge. We want this just to be just cutting on that line. And again, maybe once you start your cut, maybe type in the chat a prediction of what are we going to end up with when we have finished this cut. Somebody want to make a prediction in the chat? Somebody type 2 separate loops, 2 loops. Yeah, okay. Yeah, 2 separate loops. Yeah, so go ahead and finish. And yeah, again, not terribly surprising. We end up with 2 separate loops. Okay. Now that was not a Mobius loop or a Mobius strip. So let's actually make a Mobius strip. So take another one of your strips of paper and have a piece of tape ready and bring those ends together. But this time, instead of taping them just in a normal loop, what we're going to do right before you tape, take the end and give it a half twist. Just take one of those ends and just twist it halfway over and then tape it together. Now again, if you've done this before, some of these beginning steps aren't going to be too tough to figure out, or you've already experienced it. Hopefully this is new to a number of you. Now, first of all, does this look like our other loop? How does it look different? Or how does it look the same? What feels different about this? Certainly looks a little bit different. Kind of looks goofed up a little bit. Okay. Now, before we cut, let's do the same thing we did before. Let's take our marker and start at one point and draw a line right down the middle. I'm not very good at drawing straight lines on curved surfaces. That's all right. So mine might look a little scribbly. Now, also, I'm going to stop again and give you some time to make a prediction in the chat there. What do you predict will happen with this line? Will it end up back where we started, just like last time? What do you think might happen? Anybody want to make a prediction? Somebody predicted one continuous loop. Somebody predicted it'll end up in the same place again. And somebody said it'll end up on the inside. So when I get back around to the middle or back to my tape strip, I notice I'm on the opposite side of where I started. Yeah, somebody said it's hard to draw on the back side of the tape. That's exactly right. So I got back to my starting point, but it's not really my starting point. It's on the opposite side of the paper. So I'm going to just keep going. And I'll encourage you to do the same thing. Keep going around the inside there, what feels like the inside. But what I'm noticing is as I draw, I can kind of keep moving the loop, and it feels like I'm always on the outside. That's kind of a curious thing. And finally, eventually, I do get back around to where I started. But as I look at this, I now have a line on both sides of the paper, whereas before the line was only on one side of the paper. That makes me think this loop only has one side. Yeah, I see some nice comments in the chat there. It's all on the inside. Somebody said, I don't know what the inside is. So that's funny. I felt it felt inside the whole time. Yeah, I think this loop only has one side. There's not an inside or an outside. There's only one side to it. It's kind of an interesting thing. And all we did was just twist that paper a half before we taped it. All right, well, let's see what happens when we cut it. Let's cut that line now. So last time we cut down the line and we ended up with 2 loops that were just basically copies of the first loop, just smaller. So once you get your cut started, especially if you've never seen this before, make a prediction. What's going to happen when we get back to our starting point, when we finish this cut? We're going to end up with 2 loops again. So hopefully, I want to see some predictions there. 2 circles. It'll make 1 continuous loop. Anybody else? Before you finish cutting, what do you think will happen? So I'm going to finish my cut, but I'm not going to hold it up yet. Somebody wrote it's a large circle, 1 circle. I can't cut on the line without cutting on the line twice at a time. Okay. Oh, Chris, I think what I understand you're saying is if you cut if you're really cutting the line on one side, you're also simultaneously cutting on the other side. Is that kind of what you meant, Mr. Brownell? All right. Okay, so let's open it up, and a lot of you already have. And yeah, we just end up with, instead of 2 loops, we've only got 1 loop. Somebody said it looks like an infinity symbol. You are spot on. A Mobius strip actually is the model for the infinity symbol. That's exactly right. Although now I'm curious, am I holding a Mobius loop? Am I holding, is this now the same as the original loop? Is that still just a half twist in there, or is it a whole twist, or is it not twisted at all? Can I somehow untwist this? Yeah, somebody said it has, Cherise says it has more twists. Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Brownell. You answered my question. Yeah, you're kind of what I had said, but you can't tell what side it is. Yeah. Thank you. All right, so that's a basic experimentation with a Mobius loop. So now I'm going to hand it over to Aileen, and she's going to have us make another one and try something else.
So one of the things that's really exciting about things like this is not to assume that anyone has ever done it. So there's probably some people in this group who have made a Mobius strip, who've seen a picture of it. But just like Scott says, every time you do it, or you do it with people who haven't done it before, you'll always encounter something that's different about how they view it. If you've been to Disneyland a few times, but then you go with a little child their first time there, you see things in awe through their eyes. And that's what happens when we do these kinds of things with students. So as we reflect on where we started and just making a solid, loop with no twist in it, which is actually a cylinder, kids do that a lot. Have you ever made those chains for Christmas that you decorate your classroom with, or have students, make and then put them all together and link them together? That's part of the time we make to do art in our classroom. But what if we just had them twist one of them and had a little conversation about what science and math is happening behind some of these things that they encounter within their own environments? So another thing is what we're trying to encourage as well is for students to notice. What are they noticing when they're drawing? Now, when I draw mine, I know it's going to happen because I've done it before. But when I did it with my daughters for the first time, as they were drawing it on the Mobius loop, they had the same aha. They were like, wait a minute, I'm going over the line that's in the back. And that didn't happen the first time. So as they start noticing these things, we want to encourage that, because we want in mathematics for them to notice things like patterns. We want in science for them to be good observers of experiments or environments or events that are happening around them. So they get this practice when we go and engage them in something hands-on like this. So we're also incorporating some prediction. So we're going to do another Mobius loop. So I'm going to have you make another one, just a regular one that we've made. So get one of your other strips, make that half twist and start taping it. And as you're doing that, I want to talk a little bit about prediction, because we know that in science, we make hypotheses, we do an experiment, and then we have an outcome or a conclusion that may make us alter our experiment or may make us change what our hypothesis is. But we know as well in all learning that we learn better when we make mistakes. So by predicting, we're forcing ourselves to be vulnerable to make that mistake, because without that, we can't learn as much as we have the ability to learn or the potential to learn if we don't take that advantage. So these predictions are really important. Make a prediction, make a hypothesis, go out there on a limb, just try and think about what you think might happen. Because if you're wrong, then you can correct that and you have more opportunity to be curious the next time. So we want those cultures that we have in our classroom, even if they're distance away from us and not in person, to be places where students feel safe in making mistakes and their voice is valued in their prediction. So as we have this different Mobius loop now, we can start being curious, and there's so many questions we could ask. So I love the questions that we asked after the first one. We cut it right down the middle in half, right? And we have this other loop, but how do we count the twists? How many twists are there? How many half twists are in there? And we can start asking ourselves different questions. So this time we're going to take that Mobius loop and we're going to go from the edge about a third from the edge. So not right down the middle, but if you can visualize your strip's width into 3 separate segments, about 1/3 of that, if you made that line all the way through your Mobius loop, what is that going to look like as you start drawing it? You're going to notice some things. And as you're drawing it, think about, okay, now if I cut on this line, because that's what we're going to do next, what is that going to look like? Is it going to look exactly the same as the half I just finished doing? Or is it going to be different? Part of what we want to enhance in children is being curious. They're born curious. Somewhere down the line, we lose that a little bit, and we want to enhance that. We want to definitely preserve that, because that's so powerful. The people who've been great innovators are people who stayed with problems just a little longer, or people who are just a little more curious. So we definitely want to encourage that curiosity and the questions that come up during things like this, that we might not have time in our class to do everything we're curious about. But how beautiful and amazing it is if a child goes later on their own time and makes Mobius strips and does all of these other things that they're curious about might happen. So we're doing this 1/3 from the edge. And as you're doing that, maybe put in the chat, what are you noticing? How is that line that you're making through the Mobius loop this time different from the other one that you just finished drawing? And we talked about, I don't even know what the inside or outside is anymore, because I'm not in this, perfect realm of a cylinder. I have now this 1/2 twist that's changed the dynamic of what this figure looks like. But also when I'm drawing on it, I noticed that it's on the other side too, right? I'm coming back to the same point I started, like the cylinder, but it's still a little bit different. So let's see what some people have said here. So it looks and feels like a twist, but maybe a double twist. Okay, has more twists. Those were some of the things that we thought of after the Mobius loop was cut. But as you're drawing it, what are you noticing about maybe both sides of your paper, even though we can't say what's the inside and outside, but maybe both sides of it. All right, so if you hold it up to the light, you can see both of your lines, and you can see how maybe close to a third you were, right? And how it's over a little bit more than the other line that's on the other side. The lines we drew never end up on the side by side on the strip. So yeah, they're not on the same side. All right. So a lot of ideas of what we're noticing, we're looking at a strip. It's powerful that you're not just watching someone do it. You actually have one in your hand, right? So now you're going to go ahead and cut along that line. And Scott is going to start cutting along that line, but he's going to do what he did before. He's going to remove it so you can't see it, because we want you to think about, what do you predict will happen? Will we have two separate loops like the cylinder we made at the beginning? Will we have one longer integrated loop? How many twists do you think it'll have? How do you think this might be different than the other two ways that we've done it? Or do you think there might be some similarities here? All right, there will be more loops. There will be 3 loops. All right, let's start cutting. Let's start seeing what we're having. And as you're doing that, I've done this with bigger classes where we do several investigations. And one of those critical questions is, how many twists does this have? Because I know there's more than a half in here, but I'm not sure. So we actually had to cut it and hold it and open it up and then untwist it and count how many times we had to untwist it for it to go completely straight again. So those are some ways we can go back and investigate just how many half twists there are in the Mobius loop after we've cut it or after we've done something else to it.
So, I wanted to jump in on people's cameras. I'm seeing some wonderful looks of surprise as people unfold these things. That's awesome.
All right. So should we reveal, Scott? Let's see what it looks like here. So a lot of us were right. We thought that there might be more loops than one. There's not 3 loops. There is 2. And interesting that they're not the same size, are they? Do they have the same amount of twists in both of those loops? And what's so curious is what made it do that? So we did 1/3 around the edge. And now we have something that, does it have a proportion to itself? Does the smaller one have some kind of proportion to the larger loop? Does the twist have something to do with it? In the half one, what if we cut both halves in half again? What would we end up with then? There's so many different things that we can think about this Mobius loop, which we may have seen before and heard before. And the infinity symbol is something that's maybe familiar if math is their specialty. But all the ways we can be curious about what might happen. And if we do an iteration, say we do half, and then we do half again, and then we can do half again, we might need bigger Mobius loops that are thicker, right? But would we find a pattern? Would there be a pattern if we did 1/3 and then we're able to do 1/3 again to both of these loops that we have? Would there be a pattern that we could then predict the 4th iteration that you do this? Would we have something that is that generalization that we can make? So even in something like this, I think it's fun to start being curious. It's fun to start exploring it a little bit. So what I'm going to just do really quickly is share just a few more things, and then I'll hand it back to Paul. But what I wanted to share is just a few slides that we created and just thinking about the Mobius loop, but also thinking about ways we've seen the Mobius loop. So, we're familiar with an artist named Etcher, and he has integrated a lot of mathematics in his art. He's a very famous graphic artist. He has this kind of just style that you can recognize. During his lifetime, he made 448 lithographs. He made about over 2,000 drawings and sketches. So he was very passionate about his work. And he presents the Mobius loop here with these ants going through the Mobius loop. And if they continue in this path, like ants like to follow paths, they'll pretty much never come to an end. They'll always keep going around this Mobius loop. But I think it's interesting how he integrates so much mathematics that we can also explore and really bring to light a lot of the STEAM aspect that we were kind of talking about. With younger kids, it might be making a decoration with loops and asking them, what happens if we twist one? What does that look like? What happened to it? Things like that. But other ways we can bring even artists that have used mathematics in their work. But we also can make it relevant because math applied helps solve problems. So engineers have used mathematics. And the Mobius loop has been used, like it has been here, for the B.F. Goodrich Company, who patent this conveyor belt. And the reason they did it is because the wear and tear is equal around this conveyor belt. And so the Mobius twist here, the Mobius loop here, allowed them to save some money and have a better component for the machine that this conveyor belt was in. So the way we can make it relevant is showing the applications of mathematics in the world and around us. And just to kind of culminate this and kind of reflect the ways that we're doing this, as we are moving into a distance learning or remote learning, we never could have expected that this could happen. A lot of you, some of you are veteran teachers, some of you are new to teaching, but we have these core values that we want to keep in place where we know that engaging a student's intrinsic motivation is really the key to helping them learn and to be passionate about learning. You can have a kid who's staring at you, who's not talking, maybe not playing with his phone, but they are somewhere else. But if you have a student, if you've gotten their inner attention, then you can take them so much farther. That has a lot to do with the things that they like and dislike, but also the relationships that we build with students. And STEM activities really try to harness a way to include everyone. So predictions matter, conversation matters, collaboration matters, sharing what you're curious about, sharing what you think will happen next. So we want to really engage the learner. And today we just use paper and scissors and some tape to do that. So really thinking about the things that maybe are common around the home that they could still use, and you can harness those things even remotely. We talked about prediction, but we also didn't cover about problem solving, but there's a lot of ways that we can problem solve. And I kind of mentioned some of those. So if we looked for a pattern, or we iterated this a few times, or we were curious about something else about the Mobius strip that we could explore or investigate, we can start doing some problem solving around that and see if we could make some generalizations or solve or answer our own questions that we posed. And those are really powerful ways to engage students when they are the ones that help pose those questions, or they are the ones that lead or have autonomy in an exploration. We definitely want to encourage students for future exploration, right? Because there's so many students who outside of school have done a lot of amazing things, but why can't we harness that more in school and encourage them to be those investigators, to be those explorers, and to be curious about what they're doing? So just to close, we have a lot of ways at the Ames Center. We're trying to harness a lot of these resources. We know there's so many things out there, and there's a lot of things written up around activities with the Mobius strip. But today we not only wanted to do that with you, we wanted you to really think about yourself as a learner and then yourself as a teacher, and how those two things are so important as you balance those, and really want to make this remote time still fruitful and still quality. So we invite you to visit our website where there's more resources like the Mobius Mysteries activities where you can use those and let us know how they're going. Post things on social media and tag us so we can see how people are using these things. And of course, you have our emails to always be in contact with us and to let us be thinkers with you and partners with you in your role as a teacher and a learner of math and science. So thank you for participating with us today, and we look forward to working with you throughout this year.
Thank you so much, Scott and Aileen, and thank you everyone for participating, for thinking, for using materials. We hope that that you were able to, just as Aileen said, reflect on your role as learner and also as teacher and as designer as well. So I just want to take some time now to provide for some reflection. And so I've got just a couple thoughts here that I'd like to propose that we talk through. And the first is that we're going to move into breakout groups for 10 minutes, and we're going to have a conversation around 3 ideas. And you can use your reflection on a Mobius strip to kind of guide that. So the first is to really think about what design challenges are you facing in your teaching. Thinking of your role as a designer very much in the way that Scott and Aileen designed an experience for us to engage in. What design challenges are you facing in your teaching? And how can you take some steps toward something that's called creative courage in the design of your own science or mathematics teaching? And I'm going to share a resource with you that we have found to be very, very helpful that was put together by the Stanford Design School in cooperation with the National Equity Lab. And they put together some ideas around ways that we can think about designing for equity and designing for engaging mathematics and science teaching. And then finally, how can you affirm creative moves by your students? So I'm going to invite you to join a Padlet. If you've not seen a Padlet before, a Padlet is a place for you to jot down any ideas or thoughts that you may have along the way. And so these 3 questions for breakout rooms are on the Padlet as well. So I encourage you in your breakout room to engage in a conversation, to share your thoughts around these 3 ideas. And if you have time, to jot a note or 2 down on the Padlet that we can share together as an entire group. So at this point, I'm going to invite you into breakout rooms. You'll see a little note pop up that says, please join the breakout group. And then we'll take 10 minutes and then we'll come back together for a closing. Well, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for engaging in some conversations around the challenges that you're facing right now. Very, very real and very, very valid challenges. I'm sure that you heard some challenges that you yourself are facing, but also it became clear that we do have a variety of different challenges. And part of the design challenge that we're in now is to think about how do we do that? How do we design for teaching and learning? So I just want to invite everyone to continue these conversations over the semester. We will leave the Padlet open to begin to collaborate and share around those ideas. If you didn't get a chance to check out Creative Courage, I think we could all use a dose of courage among a dose of other things as well. But a dose of courage to really support the things that we're going to be trying and thinking about in the future. We're also really excited about going forward, our next session. So we have our next session will be in October. And we've invited Aria Mogos, who is a lecturer and a futurist fellow at the Stanford Design School K-12 lab, to join us. And she'll be talking about discriminatory design, examining emerging technologies in K-12 education. And that'll be Monday, October 19. And so in the meantime, I just want to thank you all for being here. So glad that we could meet you all and engage in this opening conversation. Please do connect with us. We want to design with you. And so as you have challenges and opportunities, please reach out and start up some conversations with us, because we want to be thought partners and to support you in the various challenges that you're facing as you continue with your teaching and supporting your students and communities. So with that, I want to thank you all for being here. If you do have any questions or comments or thoughts, we will leave this open for another 5 minutes or so. You're welcome to hang around and chat a bit more or talk about details related to program stuff. But in the meantime, we'll sign off here and thank everyone for being here. Have a great night.